The storm had rolled in fast, faster than Ethan could have imagined. The windshield wipers slapped frantically at the sheets of rain, but it was no use. His headlights were weak candles against the pitch-black curtain of night. Claire sat in the passenger seat with her arms folded tight, eyes fixed on the endless highway that stretched through the middle of nowhere. The GPS had cut out an hour ago, and the cell service was gone even before that. The only thing guiding them now was the desperate hope that somewhere, out there would be a place to stop Dot when the neon sign appeared through the downpour. It felt like an apparition, trembling letters glowing a sickly green, the word Motel flickering as if on its last breath. Beneath it, in faded paint that was barely visible through the rain, the words Hollow Pines curved across the board. Ethan slowed the car, water spraying from the tires as he turned onto the gravel drive. The building emerged gradually from the shadows, hunched low against the storm, its paint peeling, the windows opaque with years of grime. No car sat in the lot. No sign of life, except for the light over the office door, buzzing faintly like a trapped insect. "Ethan, I don't like this," Claire whispered, pulling her jacket tighter. "It looks deserted." He reached for her hand, squeezing gently. "We don't have a choice. The storm's not letting up. Just for one night. We'll be fine." The car rolled to a stop in front of the office. Rain hammered the roof as they dashed through the downpour and pushed the door open. The smell hit them first, damp mold, and something metallic lingering beneath it. The office was dim, lit only by a single lamp on the counter. Behind it, an old man sat motionless, his skin pale and waxy, eyes staring straight ahead as if they were seeing through Ethan and Claire rather than at them. His hands rested on the desk, fingers gnarled like roots. "We need a room," Ethan said, clearing his throat. "Just for the night." The old man said nothing for several long seconds, and the silence stretched so tight Ethan could hear the rain dripping from his jacket onto the cracked linoleum floor. Finally, the man slid open a drawer without breaking eye contact. A key clattered onto the counter. A tarnished brass key, its tag engraved with a number 13. Claire shifted uneasily. "Do you have something else?" "Another room?" The man's cracked lips parted, the faintest smile tugging at his face. His voice was little more than a rasp. "Only 13 tonight." He pushed the key closer. His hands trembled slightly, though his eyes never blinked. Ethan picked up the key. The metal was cold, almost wet, as if it had been sitting in ice water. He forced a polite smile, though his stomach nodded. "Thanks." The man didn't respond. By the time they turned to leave, it was as though he had already forgotten they were ever there. His gaze fixed once more on nothing. The hallway leading to the rooms was worse. Dim bulbs flickered above, casting long, jerking shadows across stained wallpaper that curled at the edges. The carpet squished beneath their shoes, damp with a sour smell that clung to the air. At the far end, room 13 waited, the brass numbers crooked, one screw missing so that the three dangled slightly askew. Ethan unlocked the door and pushed it open. The smell was stronger inside, damp wood, mildew, and underneath it, something sharp and metallic like rust or blood. The room was small, 2 sagging beds pressed against the wall, a dresser with a cloudy mirror, a TV so old it looked like a relic. The single lamp by the bed flickered weakly when he turned it on. Claire stepped inside hesitantly, her eyes scanning the walls. She froze at the doorframe, reaching out to touch it. Her fingers traced deep grooves carved into the woodlong, jagged scratches as though someone had dragged their nails against it with desperate force. Ethan joined her, his hand brushing over the marks. They were real, sharp enough that a splinter pricked his skin. "Probably just some kids messing around," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Claire didn't reply. She set her bag on the bed and pulled the zipper shut again, as though second-guessing even unpacking. Ethan tried to shake the unease settling over him. He switched on the bathroom light, only for the bulb to flicker and die immediately, leaving the space in darkness. He sighed and washed his hands quickly in the sink anyway. The water sputtered brown at first before clearing, but the pipes groaned with a sound like a muffled scream. When he returned, Claire stood by the dresser mirror, staring at her reflection. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Hear what?" She shook her head slowly. I thought someone whispered my name." Ethan walked over, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. "It's just the storm. Wind in the pipes. Don't freak yourself out." But he couldn't help noticing the mirror. The surface was clouded, streaked with age. For just a second, when he caught his own reflection, he thought he saw someone else standing in the room, someone tall, a figure leaning in the corner near the bathroom door. He blinked, and it was gone. Just a trick of the light, just exhaustion. It tried to settle in, lying fully clothed on the creaking mattress. The storm outside roared, rain hammering the thin walls, but inside was worse. The silence between gusts, the feeling that something else was listening. Every creak of the floorboards, every tick of the ancient clock above the dresser seemed to echo. Somewhere down the hall, footsteps thudded faintly, slow and deliberate, stopping directly outside their door. Neither of them breathed. The knob rattled once, then fell still. When Ethan gathered the courage to yank the door open, the hallway stretched empty, silent except for the buzzing bulb. Claire refused to lie back down. She sat in the chair by the window, eyes scanning the darkness beyond the glass. "I swear, Ethan," she whispered. "I saw a woman in the mirror, behind me. She was standing where you are now." He looked at the mirror again. Nothing but his own reflection, pale and uneasy, and Claire's terrified eyes just over his shoulder. Still, he closed the bathroom door tightly before climbing into bed again. The scratches on the frame seemed to dig into his mind as much as the wood. The night stretched long, heavy, and endless. Sleep didn't come easily, and when it did, it carried with it the sound of nails clawing wood and faint whispers calling his name from just beyond the walls. Ethan woke with a start, heart hammering against his ribs. The room was pitch black, the lamp by the bed dead, the storm outside muffled to a low growl. For a disorienting moment, he didn't know where he was. Then he felt the rough motel blanket under his palms, the damp smell filling his lungs, and it came back. The Hollow Pines Motel, room 13, Claire, but Claire wasn't next to him. The bed was empty, the sheets cold. "Claire?" His voice cracked as he whispered into the dark. No answer. He swung his legs to the floor. His socks sank into damp carpet. The air carried a new smell now, pungent and sickly sweet, like spoiled meat left too long in the heat. He followed it, stumbling toward the bathroom. The door stood ajar, and inside the faintest red glow pulsed from the cracked tiles. When he pushed the door open, his stomach turned. The sink was overflowing with dark water, and the stench was unbearable. He staggered back, clutching the doorframe. His eyes dropped to the porcelain basin, and his breath caught. What looked like clumps of hair swirled in the murky water, thick and knotted. Beneath it, pale chunks of something soft flesh bobbed against the surface. The pipes gurgled like a throat trying to force a scream. He lurched forward and yanked the faucet off. The water slowed, but with it came a final surge that spilled over the edge of the sink and down onto the floor. It left a streak like blood smeared across the tiles. A whisper brushed against his ear. So close, he could feel the air stir his hair. "Ethan?" He spun. No one was there. The mirror above the sink had fogged, though the air was cold. Slowly, words began to scrawl across it in a dripping red hand. "Welcome back." He stumbled backward, slamming into the door. His hand slipped on the knob, slick with something wet. He yanked it open and nearly collided with Claire standing outside, her face pale, her eyes wide. "Where the hell were you?" he hissed. She shook her head, trembling. "I was in the hall, Ethan. I swear, there was someone out there. A woman. She was just standing there." Her skin was gray and her eyes. She broke off, choking on the words. Ethan dragged her into the room and shut the door, fumbling with the lock. He pressed his forehead against the wood, trying to slow his breathing. The hallway beyond was silent again, but he could still hear the phantom footsteps in his mind. That night, sleep didn't come at all. When his eyes finally closed, he drifted into a dream that felt more real than waking. He was standing in the same room, but everything was bathed in a sickly yellow light. Claire was tied to the bed, her mouth gagged, her eyes wild with terror. He stood over her, a butcher's knife in his hand, the blade dripping with blood. He blinked, and the bed beneath her was soaked red, the sheets sticky and glistening. He saw his own hands moving without his will, plunging the knife down again and again. Each thrust produced a wet, tearing sound, followed by Claire's muffled screams. He felt the spray of warm blood across his face. He smelled iron and bile. His stomach rolled out, and then he woke gasping, drenched in sweat. His hands ached. He looked down, and his nails were filled with something dark, something stringy, like fibers of meat stuck under them. His heart thudded painfully. He staggered to the sink to wash it off, only to see the water run pink as it swirled down the drain. Claire was awake now, sitting rigidly in the chair by the window, her eyes fixed on him, full of suspicion. "What did you dream?" she asked softly. He opened his mouth to lie, but the words caught in his throat. She already knew? Somehow she could see it in his face. He muttered, "Nothing. Just a nightmare." She didn't press. She just turned her face back toward the window, her reflection ghostly in the glass the next morning, or what passed for morning, though the storm hadn't let up the air and the motel felt heavier. Ethan ventured out into the hall, the floorboards groaning under his weight. The wallpaper seemed darker than before, warped with water damage. He caught sight of a framed newspaper clipping half hanging on the wall. It was so faded he had to lean close to read, but the headline made his skin crawl. "Local family slaughtered in Motel Room 13. The date was nearly 50 years ago. The article described a mother, father, and 2 children butchered in their sleep. Their bodies had been mutilated beyond recognition, dismembered and hidden within the very walls of the motel. The killer was never found. The room was permanently closed until, apparently now, Ethan's throat went dry. He turned, intending to go back, but the hall stretched longer than before. The buzzing light overhead flickered, and for a moment, in that stutter of illumination, he saw her. A woman at the far end of the hall, hair hanging in wet clumps over her face, skin gray, mottled with bruises, her eyes nothing but black sockets. She lifted a hand, nails broken and jagged, and pointed straight at him. He blinked, and she was gone. He ran back to the room, slamming the door. Claire was waiting, her face pale. "You saw her," she whispered. It wasn't a question before he could answer. A sound rose up through the floorboards, a low, hollow thud, like something heavy being dragged across the basement. Then another. Then a series of frantic scrapes, as if nails were clawing at the underside of the floor. Blood began to seep from the cracks in the wood, spreading across the carpet in thin, sticky rivulets. The metallic stench filled the air. Claire shrieked and backed against the wall, her shoes soaked in red. Ethan grabbed her, pulling her toward the door. But when he tried to wrench it open, the knob was stuck. He yanked harder, and the brass tore free in his hand, leaving a jagged edge. The door didn't budge. Behind them, the mirror shimmered, its surface rippling like water. Slowly, an image formed Claire, but not Claire. A mutilated version, her face slashed open, her eyes torn out, Her mouth locked in a silent scream. Claire sobbed, clutching at Ethan's arm. "We have to get out of here." The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. For a moment, only the storm outside gave any sound. Then from the mirror, a chorus of whispers rose. Voices overlapping, hundreds of them, chanting in a language Ethan couldn't understand. Something slammed against the door from the outside, hard, then again. Wood splintered and the hinges groaned. Whatever was out there wanted and got Ethan turned in panic, searching for escape. His eyes landed on the bathroom door, half open, a faint red glow still seeping from within. He knew what he had seen there, what the sink had coughed up, what words had written themselves in blood. But with the door behind them breaking apart, it was the only way left. He grabbed Claire's hand and pulled her toward it. The storm outside raged louder, the walls trembling, as if the whole motel were breathing around them. The smell of rot and blood thickened, coating his tongue, making him gag. He could hear the dragging sound again beneath the floor, growing louder, rising, until it seemed to be right below their feet. He pushed the bathroom door open wide. What waited for them inside was worse than anything Ethan's mind had conjured in dreams. The bathroom was alive. The glow was brighter now, throbbing from the tiles like the pulse of an open wound. The sink had overflowed again, but it wasn't water spilling over this time. It was thick, black blood that gushed across the floor, pooling around Ethan's shoes and soaking into the carpet beyond. The smell was suffocating, sweet and rancid, making his eyes sting. Claire gagged, yanking her hand free from Ethan's grip. She backed against the wall, covering her mouth, her muffled scream lost under the storm of whispers swelling from the mirror. He turned toward it, his chest heaving. The glass was no longer fogged. It was clear, perfectly clear, and yet what reflected there was not their room dot, it was the basement. Chains swayed from the ceiling. Hooks gleamed with rust. Bodies dangled, torn open, their skin gray and waxy, strips of flesh dangling like tattered curtains. One head, twisted at an unnatural angle, stared directly at Ethan, its mouth opening slowly until it unhinged with a sickening crack. Then the mirror rippled like water, and one of the bodies pressed against the inside of the glass, its hands clawing, leaving streaks of gore across the surface. Its eyes rolled in its head as it mouthed silent words. Claire screamed and bolted for the door, pounding her fists against it even though it was splintering from the outside. She spun toward Ethan, eyes wide with terror. "We have to get out." Before Ethan could move, the floor beneath him gave a long, low groan. Then it broke. He fell hard, crashing through rotten boards, landing in a splash of filth. His body jolted with pain, but the stench hit harder than the impact. He gagged, pushing himself up, only to realize where he was, the basement. The air was heavy and wet. The faint glow from above illuminated rows of rusted meat hooks hanging low, some bare, others weighed down with what was left of human remains. He staggered back, his hand smearing against the wall slick with blood that oozed between bricks. His foot caught on something, and when he looked down, he saw it was a severed arm, the skin bloated, the fingers curled as though reaching for him. Claire's scream echoed from above. He craned his neck, trying to see through the hole he had fallen through. Her face hovered there for an instant, pale and frantic. Then she disappeared. "Claire!" His voice cracked as he tried to haul himself up, but there was no way to climb back. He turned, heart pounding, searching for stairs, any exit. That was when he saw her. The woman. She stood in the far corner of the basement, half in shadow. Her hair was matted and dripping, her gray skin torn in places where bone jutted through. Her eyes were hollow pits, yet somehow he felt her gaze piercing him, deeper than any eyes could. She took one step forward, her bare feet splashing in the blood. Ethan staggered backward, his hands scraping against stone. "Stay away from me." her head tilted unnaturally far, neck cracking. Then she raised her arms, and from behind her, the corpses hanging on hooks began to twitch. One by one, they convulsed, their heads snapping up, mouths opening in perfect unison. A chorus of voices poured out, whispering, chanting, until the air vibrated with the sound. "Welcome back." The words thundered inside his skull. He clutched his head, screaming. His vision blurred, and in the haze he saw himself, not through his own eyes, but as though looking into the mirror again. He was holding a knife. His clothes were drenched in blood. Claire lay on the floor before him, her chest split open, her heart missing. Her glassy eyes stared at the ceiling, her lips frozen in a scream. "No," he choked. "That's not me. That's not me." But the knife was already in his hand, cold, heavy. The blade dripped onto the floor, leaving small red pools at his feet. His heart lurched. He dropped it, stumbling backward, but when it clattered on the ground, the sound was like a gunshot in the cavernous room. The corpses laughed. A dry, rattling sound, the noise of lungs that hadn't drawn air in decades. They rocked on their hooks, swinging gently, like grotesque pendulums. The woman stepped closer, her lips finally parting. "You never left." He turned to run, and there, against the far wall, was Claire. For an instant, hope flared. But when he rushed toward her, his stomach twisted. She wasn't whole. She was nailed to the wall, arms spread wide, her body butchered. Her stomach was split, her entrails spilling down to coil on the floor. Her face was slack, lips pale, but her eyes moved, fixing on him. Her mouth opened. Blood bubbled from it as she whispered, "Ethan, why?" He fell to his knees, shaking his head violently. I didn't do this." But in the reflection of her eyes, he saw himself again, knife in hand, grinning, covered in her blood. His stomach heaved. He vomited bile onto the floor, but even then the metallic taste of iron lingered in his mouth. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed above. The basement door creaked open. A cone of light cut through the dark, and a shadow appeared at the top of the stairs. The old man. He descended slowly, each step groaning. When he reached the bottom, his pale eyes locked on Ethan. A faint smile curled his lips. "Some guests check in," he rasped. "But you always return." Ethan staggered back, slipping in blood. "No, this isn't real. This isn't happening." The old man tilted his head. "It's always been you. 50 years, 100, it doesn't matter. You come back, you kill, and we keep you here." The corpses groaned in agreement, their voices overlapping, filling the room with a deafening chorus. Ethan screamed, clutching his ears, but the sound burrowed inside his skull. The woman was right in front of him now, her face inches from his. The stench of rot rolled off her, choking him. Her hollow eyes reflected nothing but darkness. Her jaw unhinged, wider and wider, until it split her face in half, revealing nothing but an endless black void. He tried to back away, but cold, wet hands gripped his ankles. The corpses had come alive, clawing at him, pulling him down into the pool of blood that had spread across the floor. He thrashed, screaming, but more hands clamped onto his wrists, his shoulders, dragging him under. His last glimpse before his head slipped beneath was Claire, nailed to the wall, her mouth opening in a scream that matched his own. Darkness swallowed him. When the police arrived 2 weeks later, the motel was nothing but a ruined shard, collapsed, overtaken by vines. The locals had told them it had been burned down 50 years ago after the murders, abandoned ever since. Yet the call had come from a frantic woman's voice, screaming for help from room 13. They searched the rubble but found nothing. Nothing except a rusted brass key, half buried in the ashes. Number 13 etched faintly into its tag. That night, along the lonely highway, the neon sign buzzed to life once more. The word motel flickered in the darkness. Beneath it, glowing faintly red, the word vacancy pulsed out, and from somewhere inside the hollow shell of the building, a scream tore through the night.
Please like and subscribe channel Fear Frequency for more horror stories. Thank you.